Hey guys, welcome to Cars, Computers, and Bowie. Today we're going to be doing some work on the truck. I actually ordered the correct belt this time, so we're going to replace the power steering belt. Do little things here and there. There's a power steering leak. I know what it is. It's just a little O-ring. I need to either fix or replace or just figure out what's going on. Make sure our turn signals are working right, and just anything else that I can kind of poke around and fix. Alright, so you'll recall from last time we tried to replace this belt, but I got the wrong size. This time I'm fairly confident I got the correct size, but basically we just need to loosen up these power steering pump bolts, loosen this tensioning nut, and then we can pull this belt off, put the new one on, and it should be pretty easy. Power steering leaks out of the low pressure line. You can tell that this is the low pressure line because it's thicker than the pressure line. I think there's an O-ring down here that's either bad or, I mean, it could be there's two O-rings in there and I just didn't remove one of them correctly. So we're going to take a look at that as well. And also, I never did finish the turn signals. One of these, I think the bulb's in backwards. And also remember that socket was all chewed up. So I'm going to take a second look at it and just make sure I have everything wired up right. So, let's see if we got the right belt this time. Yep, I'm thinking that's correct now. So let's go ahead and get to loosening this up. On my Christmas list this year, a set of deep well sockets. I used to have a set, but they've been lost and broken over the years. One thing I learned in shop class is you kind of acquire tools over time. You don't go out and just buy a ton of new tools all at once. So the first time you buy a tool, buy the cheapest one you can get, and if it breaks, you know you use that tool a lot, and then you can buy an expensive model. That way you don't just waste your money on something expensive that you didn't need. So, pull this belt off now. Make sure I got it in the right, correct groove. Test the tension on your belt by kind of wiggling around a little bit. So according to the factory manual, this should deflect about 1/4 inch. Okay. Now let me tighten the top bolts because that also affects the tension. Yeah, that looks about right. We're going to start the engine, make sure it seats in and it doesn't squeal when we rev it. Alright, that went pretty well. So I'll drive it around a little bit later to make sure it's seated and everything as I'm going around, but everything looks good. It's not shaking or anything, and now we've got new drive belts. Alright, next thing we're going to do is going to take a look at the turn signals. Make sure I got my bulbs in correctly, and make sure all of our signals and everything work. Alright, so that's the side markers. They ain't doing shit on this side. Those are the blinkers. Now, you'll notice that one is a lot brighter than this one. So I'm pretty sure I have the bulb backwards on this one. Alternatively, or even both, one of the contacts may be messed up. And this is with the markers on. So you can see it's kind of confusing now because you can tell this one's blinking off. Okay, I think I'm just going to declare this socket trash. I'm going to go steal the socket from one of the reverse lamps. The reverse lamps don't work anyway. Something to fix later on. So, hang tight. Okay, so here we've got our socket from the reverse light. It's the exact same kind of socket. The reverse socket's supposed to be different. The reverse light only has 2 wires. It's actually cheaper to get the 3-wire for everything rather than try to find separate ones for the reverse lamps. So I don't like cutting into the harness as much as I can avoid it, because you never get any of that wiring back. Little compression fittings, they seem pretty strong and pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and just snip it after and then wire it that way. So, just cut these. Should be about 16. So, twist these so they don't separate out too much. So this one had these little compression fittings that came with them. So since the white one wasn't hooked up at all on the back, I haven't actually crushed it yet. The other two have already been crushed, so I think I need to replace them. Problem is, I don't know if I have any of these as spares. Okay, couldn't find any of those crush fittings, but one thing I did find, these little wire nuts. Now these wire nuts are actually a little special. You see on the end they've got little, these actually came with a sprinkler valve that I got, where I needed to replace the sprinkler valve, and it provided these nuts that are supposedly waterproof. I guess we'll try them and see. Eventually I'll probably try to replace these with the proper fittings. I don't recommend this, but if you're in a pinch or you're just lazy like me, you can just use wire nuts. The end's crushed. It's nice and taut. And there we go. We've got the properly done fitting and then our two wire nuts. Okay, so you see how that one's blinking and that one you can barely tell is doing anything? I've got that bulb backwards. Blinkers, you can tell there's an actual change here, so that means it's working right. And this is with the side markers off, it's just blinking the brights. So that bulb is now fixed. Alright, next thing we're going to take a look at is our power steering leak, see if we can figure out what's going on there. Ideally you have like a C-style push for this, but this should leak quite a bit. So we're going to come over here, move this out of the way a little bit. You know, now that I'm looking at it, I don't think there's an O-ring there at all. This is just metal. Everything online has told me never to do this, but we're going to use just some Teflon tape to see if we can slow down or stop the leak from this fitting. Alright, so my best guess is that's probably not going to be any better, but I got this cinched down, I got some of that Teflon tape in there, so hopefully it'll slow down the leak. So that may have actually worked there. I turned the wheel back and forth a couple times. It didn't leak any fluid. It could just be a temporary thing. We'll have to wait and see. We're going to take it for a test drive now. We need to seat the belts anyway. Alright, that'll do it for today's episode of Cars, Computers, and Bowie. We'll see you next time.